So first of all, I want to thank everyone. Thank you for attending Well-Being um, Wellness Wins, making student well-being actionable to promote whole child success. I'm And so I want to thank you all for saying yes and bringing your open mind to this space today. We know your time is valuable, and we are so grateful that you chose to spend the next 30 minutes with us. During our 30 minutes together, I'll share some practical steps to measure and address how your students are feeling and functioning. Before we begin, let's see how we're all feeling and functioning with just a quick check to see where everybody is. So I'm going to show you some options here on the screen. And I want to invite you truly to give yourself permission to breathe and reflect. How are you feeling right now? Not just professionally, but also personally. So this time of year, we're often running on fumes. The calendar, the clock moves faster than we do. So we can't pour into others if we're running on empty. So I want you to just use this as a moment, no judgment. Let us know. Check in with yourself and choose what number you feel you most agree with. So we got a lot of fives, some threes, some fours, some sixes. I think I'm maybe sitting at a three. We finished what we started. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking that minute to pause and reflect with me. I really appreciate your vulnerability to share with me how you're feeling. So, today's session will last approximately 30 minutes, and I want you to feel free to use the Q&A box at any time, submitting your questions, and we'll address as many of these as possible at the end of our time. So, please just use the chat for general comments and conversation throughout. Webinar certificates will be sent to your registered email address within 48 hours of the session. So just keep an eye on that inbox. And a recording of today's webinar, along with any additional resources, will be made available to you within 48 hours. We'll send an email with link to access any of those. So for those who are school-based educators hoping to pilot Thrively, we'd love to connect with your principal. So instead of scanning a QR code, I'm going to just drop the link in the chat for you so that you can go straight to that survey and help us make those connections. So with the logistics out of the way, let's move into introductions for today's session. So my name is Jamie Jo Morgan, and I've been in education for 16 going on 17 years now. 8 of those years, I worked as a gifted and talented instructional specialist for my school district. That's where I actually found Thrively and realized how absolutely transformational it was. I'm raising 2 incredible daughters in North Texas, and I am a huge music theater advocate, participant, volunteer, currently in Annie the Musical as we speak. So big into that, and I bring that to everything that I do. So I want to talk about today's learning goals. Let's start with why student well-being is so essential. So we know that academic success doesn't happen in isolation. It's built on a foundation of students feeling safe, supported, and connected. That's why when students have a strong well-being, they're ready to learn. They're more engaged and they're more resilient when challenges come up. Thrively's Well-Being Index was designed by Turnaround for Children to measure the conditions that prepare students for learning. It gives us a peek into the insight of our students and how they're experiencing in terms of belonging, in terms of relationships, and hope for the future. So the Thrively Wellbeing Check-in allows educators to really understand the climate and the culture of classrooms in their schools. So once that data is in your hands, it becomes this powerful tool for you to use. You can start to recognize patterns in your students. Maybe you notice that a certain grade level is feeling less connected, uh, or that students who are showing stress before testing windows, maybe that's something that you notice coming up. Having that visibility means that you can address those challenges before they escalate into real problems. The best part of this is you are acting on data and it doesn't require a major initiative. Sometimes it's a simple, high impact, low prep strategy, just as easy as starting a quick chat, quick check-in with students in question. So you might pair students intentionally for collaborative work or even celebrate small wins as a group. So these strategies build trust, they build connection and a sense of community, which feeds right back into student success. So well-being really is that foundation. It's what allows you to build everything else on top of it. So every other part of learning is able to take root when your students are feeling and functioning well. So I want to talk about why these classroom well-being actions matter. So why is it important? Well, research shows us that students who feel a strong sense of belonging are 4.5 times more likely to be engaged in high school. And that's huge. 4.5 times more likely to be engaged in school. High well-being shows up in better attendance, in stronger academic growth, and in improved behavior. So, simply put, connections support directly driven learning outcomes. So, you've got the ability to drive your learning outcomes simply by checking on the well being of your students. So, here's how you can act on this tomorrow. First, you're going to look to spot trends, reviewing your class well-being data and grouping students into maybe tier 1 groups, tier 2, tier 3, based on what kind of support they need based on their well-being data. So you look at small groups and you can give attention to prevent issues from escalating. You can reinforce engagement as well. So the second thing you're going to do is coordinate your support. So you're going to partner with colleagues or counselors to ensure that your students that need that extra little bit of help while maintaining their routines get that extra support that they need. So supportive environments reduce stress for your students, and that helps them focus on retaining the learning that they do. A third thing that you can do is hold student voice circles. So you can ask brief questions like, what helps you feel supported? And you can incorporate their ideas into your routines. So sometimes giving students a voice strengthens their belonging and engagement. So that's one of the great things about Thrively is you find out which students need you. You can ask them how they feel supported, and then you can incorporate their ideas into your daily routines. Finally, I want you to visualize trends. So use simple charts or mood boards or dashboards to track and celebrate progress. So seeing improvement in your students is going to help guide you with your next steps. So even small, consistent actions take one check-in, one voice circle, one visual tracker. Those can be meaningful differences in classroom well-being, student success. So the success of your classroom using the well-being index, being able to track data in real time, and then being able to bring that in can make all of the difference in the world for your students. So we want to support their well-being. In previous webinars, we discussed the 4 enabling conditions for learning. Um, those are strengths, well-being, hope, and connections. So I want to talk today about enabling condition number 2, and that's supporting well-being. And it's simple but necessary. At its core, well being comes down to 2 elements: feeling and functioning. Feeling is about a student's sense of belonging, safety, and hope, and functioning is about how they engage with learning, relationships, and goals. And together, feeling plus functioning equals well-being. So the well-being index only takes about 60 to 90 seconds for a student to complete, but is grounded in over 20 years of research. That's powerful because in just a minute and a half, educators can get meaningful insights into how their students are really doing below the surface. Um, how often do we jump into teaching without actually checking in with our students? We are so used to, in education, having no time and it's go, 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 and you are teaching from bell to bell. But how often are you stopping and asking your students how they're feeling and functioning before you start throwing information at them? You want to make sure they're in the right spot to be able to learn. And sometimes it's as simple as this quick 60 to 90-second check-in. So we developed this tool in partnership with Arizona University's Center for Whole Child Education, which ensures it's not only practical, but it's also backed by leading research. It's designed to give educators actionable data while respecting classroom time. And once we have that quick research-based snapshot of student well-being, the real power comes in how we use the data to spot trends, to respond early, and to strengthen the learning environment for your students. So this slide shows how Thrively makes well-being data actionable. On the left, you can see a trend line for student well-being. This gives educators visibility into how students are doing over time. And this helps identify patterns across the classroom, grade level, or even a whole school. It's a way to catch changes early before they turn into bigger challenges. I actually had a student once use their own data. They were tracking it over time because I had my students take it every morning. And this student noticed that he was always cranky on Fridays, always. And by using his own data, he was able to figure out that yes, his well being was low on Fridays. He had always answered the question about being tired as low on Fridays. And then he went back and I was like, well, how can we use that to figure out what's going on Fridays or even Thursdays? And he was able to figure out that Thursday nights he had soccer practice, so he was getting in late, and so that made him sleepy, and so Fridays were a tough day for him. And he came up with a whole plan to help fix it. And it was all based on using his own well-being data, which I found amazing. And that's one of those transformational changes that you see that comes from using a simple tool like the well-being check-in for Thrively. So at the bottom, you'll see how the data is broken down into simple categories: feeling and functioning. That brings us to your overall well-being. It makes it really easy for teachers to interpret the results quickly. And then on the right, here's an example of an individual student. This is Alejandro. He shared that he lost his grandmother, and you can see how that's affecting how he's feeling and functioning, those scores. So having this context allows educators to respond with empathy and with support, while also recognizing that external factors can impact learning. So the power of all this data is that it gives educators both a big picture and an individual lens by helping schools create a supportive environment for every child. So once we have this clear picture, from overall trends to individual student stories, the real question becomes, what do we do with this data? What do we do with it? Well, that's where we can turn insight into action and make a meaningful impact on the classroom. So, turning data into action is powerful. It's when we move from information to action. So, first, it's important to look for trends, not just individual responses. So, one student may have a tough day, but when you notice patterns across a whole class or across a whole grade level, you can take steps to shift the environment for many students at once. So, second, the data helps us spot early warning signs. So, if you see dips in well being or belonging, you can respond before those challenges grow into something like disengagement or behavior issues. Third, we can connect the data to daily practice. So maybe the data shows that students need more opportunities to use their strengths, or their routines could better support their sense of safety. So these small adjustments, like how we structure groups, give feedback, or set up the classroom, make a big difference for your students. And finally, it's just as important to celebrate the positive findings. When data shows growth or highlights what's working, then we should call it out and we should build on it. That recognition creates momentum and really reinforces the culture that we want to grow. I'm trying to make sure I'm watching our chat box for anybody that has questions. And I want to bring us to our actionable next steps. So these are just a few things that you can do starting as early as tomorrow, right? We want you to have the opportunity to leave this session with actionable next steps to take. So, step one, spot trends. So, review your class level well being, identify patterns with how students are feeling or engaging, and group your students for small group support or individual follow up. Another step is to coordinate support. So you can partner with other colleagues, with counselors, with grade level teams to make sure that your students are receiving the right support that they need while maintaining their classroom routines for all students. And so this is where you can really use your Thrively well-being data. If you've got students that you know would benefit from seeing a counselor, this is the time to get them a counseling referral. I have had more than one student just that I personally knew as an educator that getting them assistance with the counselor, I know literally saved their lives. I know from just working with other schools that I have two other teachers that have shared with me um, that they had students who the well-being check-in saved their lives because they weren't going to come and tell the teacher that they needed help, they were having dark thoughts, but they were comfortable sharing how they were not feeling and functioning well, and that led to the teacher having a bigger conversation with them, which led to some counseling referrals and some actual referrals for things that they needed help with. And so this turned into literally life-saving support for students. I'm not saying it's your only go-to tool, but I am saying this is something that can help you have your finger on the pulse of your class and on the pulse of your individual students. And there are a lot of times that students will feel comfortable sharing via the well-being check-in that they might not feel comfortable coming up and telling you in person. Is there a form that you can access for those who want to use this tool with your students? This is something that you should already have access with your students, but I'm happy to help you take a look into it further. I'll put my email address in the chat. If you want to send me an email, we can check and make sure that you've got everything set up that you need? Absolutely. So, your third step, um, an actionable next step, is to use your student voice circles to ask questions like, what helps you feel supportive? What would make our classroom better? Incorporate those ideas into your routines or your class agreements. You know how we always have those little class agreements, the little class contracts. You can actually incorporate those into your class contracts. And then another way is to just visualize these trends in a simple way. So you can use a bulletin board, you can use charts, you can use mood boards. And so students can see their progress, they can feel celebrated, and then you can quickly adjust the support based on what the data actually shows. I'm going to actually give you a resource right now. There you go. You should have a link in the chat, and it'll force you to make a copy of it. And this is just next steps in using, it's a system leader next steps document. So it'll force a copy there. So when it comes up and it's like, make a copy, yes, you want to go ahead and make the copy. All right, let me go ahead and move on. Sorry, my buttons are in the way. There we go. All right, so I wanted to go ahead and recap. I want you to remember that well-being isn't just nice to have, it's a foundation for engagement, a foundation for learning, a foundation for long-term student success. So Thriving's well-being index helps us see what students are experiencing and gives us actionable insight into their lives, into their minds while we're working with them. It's not about tracking every single number. It's about spotting trends so that we can celebrate students' strengths, so that we can celebrate their success, so we can address challenges early. And the best part is small, consistent practices like check-ins, like shout-outs, those quick belonging rituals can make a real difference over time for our students. So I want you to think, and as we're getting ready to leave today, I want you to think about one strategy that you could try this week to strengthen your classroom culture. Even one small step can have a big impact. And I'd love to give you just about 30 seconds to go ahead and think of what one step is that you could take this next week to strengthen your classroom culture. And go ahead and put that in the chat for us. Yep, you're like, simple. I'm going to do well-being check-ins. And it can truly be that simple. If well-being check-ins are not something that you have gone through before with your students, then implementing them can be that one big change. And like I said, I liked to do mine daily, but there are some people that will do it weekly, like Thrively Thursday, Mindful Monday, Wellbeing Wednesday. So if you want to have that, if you're into making sure you want to do it once a week, then you could do it once a week. And you could use that alliteration, Mindful Monday, Thrively Thursday, Wellbeing Wednesday. Oh, Marcella's saying each morning I ask the students how they're feeling using the emotions from the Disney movie. So you like is it Inside Out? Is that the movie you're talking about? Yes. That's a great movie. That's a great movie. So, and while we move on to the next slide, I'll give you a minute to keep going if you've got any questions. But I just want to close out with a few thoughts and ways that educators can stay connected and continue this journey with us. So, as we look ahead, I want to welcome you to join us for our last webinar of this first quarter. You can scan the QR code, and when you do, you'll be able to register for this next session, which is amazing because it is with um, Kathleen Beachboard, and it is all about hope, and you will absolutely love it. She's a fantastic speaker and always has incredible things to share with us. She is a best-selling author of Igniting Hope, exploring how neuroscience and positive psychology can transform the way we approach learning. And our webinar sessions typically build directly on what we shared in the past, what was shared today, and they're designed to give you practical strategies that you can take back to apply immediately in your classrooms. So we don't want this to be just a one-time connection. I want to make sure that you are truly able to stay connected with us. You can follow Thrively on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Visit us at thrively.com/classroom for resources, research, and implementation strategies. And remember, if you refer your principal to Thrively, you'll be entered for a chance to win a free pilot account. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat one more time for anyone that wants to enter that. There you go. Um, and most importantly, we want to keep hearing your stories. So tag us on social media, share how you're using these strategies. Let us celebrate alongside with you as your students thrive. And just thank you so much for spending this time with us today. It has been an absolute privilege to learn and to share with you. Until next time, let's continue to humanize learning together as we create strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful classrooms. So thank you all so much for taking the time to be with me today. I really, truly appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing all of your amazing stories.